I'm very pleased to introduce our next speaker, Tom Harder of GavinHeath. Tom is a partner at GavinHeath, which is a leading and award-winning provider of recruitment and talent acquisition services supporting clients across the United States and Canada, and the organization is headquartered in Denver. Tom began his career in staffing a decade ago and has been an integral part of GavinHeath's success. Tom, it is great to have you. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Catherine. I appreciate it. And thanks to everyone so far who's, spoken and being able to come and really help with this event. I think it's so important now more than ever, right? I mean, we heard the stats, 1 in 4 Coloradans that are 65 plus are in the labor market. I mean, what an amazing number of people in Colorado that, are in the labor market and ready to come to work and make a difference every day. So I think it couldn't be a better time. I think I'm really glad where Carrie left off there at the end and saying, how really, asking employers how we can take these efforts from this session today and from what we've learned over the last few years, especially in this new world, which is so amazing that we're here now of diversity, inclusion, and how important it is in the workforce, but really how we can take this from today and employ it every day as employers or as employees, right? It's very easy for all of us to listen in to these events and sympathize and understand and really feel like this is important. What's not so easy is taking what we've learned and employing it as a best practice, right? We're going to be done today at 11 or 12 and it's going to be busy. And then Monday is coming up next week and it's going to be busier, right? So how do we get into this? And that's really what I want to focus on. Before I get there, I think we have a really interesting perspective here at GavinHeath and for all of our competitors and partners in Colorado from a staffing industry perspective. I've lived this every day of my life for 14 years in this industry. And, luckily, I've been in a lot of these circumstances we talked about today. I've been the younger boss. I am now. And I've had the opportunity to hire a lot of young people, a lot of now Gen X, really young people in the experienced worker age population as well. And, currently we have that at GavinHeath. And we also have a really good perspective because we work with a lot of really large companies here in Colorado and small and medium-based companies that are really trying to understand how they can be and create a more inclusive work environment. Now that's for race, gender, and age as well. And it's luckily myself and Rochelle, who's on this call, and a lot of our other partners are able to go into these companies, whether they're Fortune 500 companies or your 6-person startup, right? And really teach them how they can employ these best practices to get the experienced worker in there and really thriving. I think for us, a couple things that I've seen really work well and what I really hope that employers can start doing is just looking at their own internal hiring practice, right? And that starts at a very entry level item, the job description. When you go to post a job and you're writing a job description, what are you saying? We focus a lot on, if you look at a lot of job descriptions, you'll look at words like fresh ideas, very nimble, agile, technology driven. These are all words and phrases that sound great, right? They sound really awesome when you say them, and they sound like what a great place to work, young, fresh, awesome. But when an experienced worker or someone who maybe doesn't share that perspective with you is reading those, that's an instant, maybe I'm not the right fit, right? Maybe I'm not a technology driven person, but I have so much experience in this industry. How would I not be a good fit? So a really easy place to start for all of us employers is really taking a look at these job descriptions and leaning on some of your experienced workforce to help write these and understand their point of view. My point of view is probably incredibly different than some of my employees here who are in that age group. And the way that they read things, the way that they visualize things, it's so much different that it's really us trying to seek to understand how we can be more inclusive in what we do at a very, entry level type of decision-making process. We're in this place in Colorado post-pandemic or getting close to that, I guess, where everyone's battling for the same talent every day. it's for as big as Denver seems, it's small. Right? So we're all going for the same people, we think, because we're all looking the same places. But how else can we work with our experienced workers here in Colorado who are just really trying to get into the workforce, or really just out here, struggling to get a chance? And it's, I think there's a lot of things we can do. The few that I've written down that I've really tried to employ is in the workforce centers and outside of that, trying to understand or create awareness around what it is like right now in our world to find a job. It's not what it used to be. Even 10 years ago, 14 years ago, when I started in this industry, you applied for a job online and you got a phone call and you got an interview, whether your resume looked perfect or not. I don't know how many people I speak to every day who are struggling to find a job, and I ask them, well, what are you doing? And they say, I'm applying and I am online and I'm sending in applications and I don't hear anything back. Unfortunately, that's not the world we live in anymore. And everything's so based on a LinkedIn or job boards where you constantly have to be updating resumes and figure out algorithms and keywords that people will pick up on, that unless we are seeking to understand or seeking to teach these individuals how they can better themselves from a job seeker perspective, that there's going to always be this gap. So how can we really help these folks? And then, outside of what I talked about earlier with job descriptions, we're talking about how can we make an office environment more inclusive to this experienced workforce age group? Can we let people work from home a little more, like exactly what Carrie was talking about? Yes, absolutely. We just found out the last year that we don't need to be in an office. Some people do, some people don't. I am so thankful that I can't be in an office with three very little kids at home, but for someone in a different age group, that might not work well for them. So can we include them even though they do not fit the exact mold that everyone else does in our group? Can we, what else can we do, right? Can we really look at when we interview people, instead of, asking them what their strengths and weaknesses are, can we tell them, hey, this is what we expect from someone? And then really listen to them and understand what they may be missing so we can create individualized training for them to help come in and really become an active producer in the company. So many times our clients, and even GavinHeath for sure, has interviewed folks and maybe their weakness is around technology, or maybe it's around being on the phone or having anxiety around, being a customer facing employee. That's okay. We can create individualized training for the right person to come in here and teach them technology and teach them how to use it as a best practice here or at any of our clients. So, I think creating clear expectations on what employers need from an employee, instead of creating a list of must-haves, but creating expectations and then figuring out the best person for the job based on how we can help them be successful in their experience, is just a different way to look at, an everyday thing of hiring someone and understand. And you never know, you may stumble upon the best fit and it may not fit the mold you thought you had in the first place. So those are a few things that we've really honed in on in the last, year, absolutely, and past that, and really trying to constantly get better. I think when we're, working with our customers, I'm so thankful we have this opportunity. It's such a unique opportunity in staffing to work with these bigger companies and their talent acquisition teams and say, hey, in your job descriptions or in your interview process, how are you, everyone is always talking about now, they really do want to have a more diverse workforce. Well, how are you doing this, right? And really getting into the fact of, how we can do this every day. So I think, for us moving forward, it's a constant battle, but it's really thinking about the steps you can take at a small level and large.
Well, Tom, thank you so much for these comments. And I have to tell you, the chat is lighting up. Our audience has questions for you. So if you will, here is a question that we have. And this comes from one of our audience members. Tom, you mentioned the different perspectives that age diverse employees might use on a particular situation. Do you
Sure.
have a a specific example to show how a 55 plus employee compared with an age 30 employee will see the same situation?
I do. Absolutely. Great question. I mean, luckily I'm 32 and one of my best recruiters here is over 60. So it's like perfect timing. Yeah. So, when we get approached with a situation, whether it's a problem or a good thing happening or a question from a client, I usually, almost not even, unconsciously thinking about it, try to take the conversation over right away. And it's something that I'm working on, but it's something where I really try to come up with a solution and an answer right away. Whereas my partner will listen a little bit more to what I'm saying and really digest what they've learned in the years they've worked that I haven't, and say, hey, I think those are good solutions, but have you thought about it this way? Right. And you have a different perspective on what you've seen, or just a different thought perspective on what you're hearing. Whereas I think different personalities, but also that age difference really can bring in a little bit more patience. Absolutely. And it can bring in, the opportunity to, to really look at things from a larger picture, more so than right in front of you, really scoped, but more of a wide angle.
Very good. And we actually have another follow-up question. And that is, in your experience with GavinHeath and as a recruiter working with employers, what is the extent to which employers have this idea that older workers want and are demanding higher salaries than their younger counterparts? That another myth to be busted, that they're no longer open to learning new things. How often do you encounter this, and how do you address it?
Yeah, great question. It's funny when you're talking about like myths in the hiring practice. Everything's a fact until you go in and bust it, right? I mean, when we talk to employers, or even when we are hiring, it's kind of ingrained in us sometimes that, hey, if this person has 15 years of experience or 26 years of experience, they will ask for more money. Well, did you ask them? Have you had that conversation with them, right? So, I mean, this is going to sound like a simple answer, but getting around that is by talking to that person and not disqualifying them based on years of experience and what you assume they're looking for financially. So, when I talk to my clients and when I talk to my team internally, they do have a mold, right? 5 to 10 years, 10 years plus. Well, 10 years plus is a big range. So if I someone with 30 years of experience, I'm right in the range we talked about. So we better be prepared to have a conversation about that person.
Yeah, no, you make some really, really good points. As we wind this up, any final words of wisdom that you want to share with employers out there about this opportunity?
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for that. I think the biggest thing that has really enabled us at GavinHeath and our really, really important partners here and clients is just, like I said, creating expectations for what you're looking for each position, right? In each job description, instead of listing required must-haves, must have these qualifications to be considered, change it to expectations and see who you get. Because you might find someone you would have interviewed before because they align with the expectations that you desire and they have. So I think, again, I feel like these are simple answers, but in order to make big steps, you have to really look at the foundation. And the foundation of hiring someone is creating a job description, it's interviewing, it's creating an inclusive work environment. And until we are able to go in individually and fix those three things, there's not much that can be done.
Well, thank you, Tom. Thank you so much for your experience and perspectives and for your passion. One last question.
Yeah.
Where can our audience go to learn more about GavinHeath and reach you?
Absolutely. Our website is gavinheath.com. You can find me on LinkedIn. My name is Thomas Harder. Tom is my middle or shortened name. Please reach out. I'd love to connect with anyone who has questions or would like to talk further on how we can help.